Hey everyone, today on the show we have Anthony Trucks. So excited for you guys to hear our conversation. We're talking about how to make shifts happen. And trust me, when you hear Anthony's story, you are going to realize that shifts are possible. Right, Anthony?
That's true. Make sure you guys tune in.
And make sure you subscribe. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Better Together. When you know better, you get better. That's what we do here every single day. I feel like I can't hear myself, so it makes me worried that I don't have audio.
No, your audio's great on my end.
Oh, all right, sweet.
You're flying into the greens on the mixer.
Okay, all right. So I just can't hear myself. Cool.
You can't at all?
No, I don't hear myself talking really.
Huh.
Very little, but it's okay.
Okay.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
Our quote of the day, our identity is who we are when we are not thinking about who we are. It's the actions we take unconsciously. Ooh, that was a quick drop off.
Yeah, I know. I pressed the, it's so funny. I usually don't press.
I was like,
I usually don't press the like music thing, the button on the music thing. And I tried it that time and I was like, nope.
Yep, that didn't
dropped
work.
It too fast.
Okay, next time we know.
Now we
You
know.
know better, you get better. Okay, our identity is who we are when we are not thinking about who we are. It's the actions we take unconsciously. All right, that's from Anthony Trucks, our guest today. You know, I've always loved the idea of, you know, like who you are or your character is what you are when no one's looking.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It's like when you're not, overthinking it, you're just doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What up, Heal Squad? We're back. Today we're going to be chatting with Anthony Trucks about learning how to make shift happen in our lives, how we can discover our hidden superpowers and unleash our full potential. I met Anthony that weekend in Napa, where I met a whole slew of amazing humans, and he is one of them. So I'm really excited to share him with you guys today. And I think we're just going to get right to it. What do you think?
Let's do it. I'm
it.
excited.
All right. Anthony Trucks is a former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior, international speaker, host of the Awe Shift podcast, and the founder of Identity Shift Coaching. He uses cutting-edge science and psychology to upgrade how you operate so you can elevate your life and your business to reach your full potential. After being given away in a foster care at 3 years old, being adopted into an all-white family at 14, losing his NFL career to injury, and more, he learned how to shift at a very young age. And now his life mission is teaching others how to make shift happen in their lives. I love the word shift. I really learned how to shift a lot after brain surgery. And so shift was like my favorite word after. I'm like, just a few shifts, just shift. So Anthony's going to teach us how to shift today. Anthony, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So you had to learn at an early age whether the word was adjust quickly or shift. I don't know if there's a real difference, but you will know. Tell me how you learned how to shift so, at such a young age, but then also it's kind of the force behind so much of what you do.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I learned it back then. I think I experienced it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think there's a difference between experience and wisdom, which is its difference is just learning. And so I don't think I learned from it till far too late. However, I did execute shifts like all of us do at different times. It just took me a lot more time, a lot more pain, a lot more energy than it needed to. But I think a lot of it boils down to just I chose to survive in the moments. I think that's what sometimes the survival aspects that lead into it, because in the survival, you navigate these shifts and all of a sudden you come out in the back end and go, oh, something changed, something shifted. And so for me, had many of them at many different ages, the first ones being at a young age in foster care.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the idea, right? Like you don't even realize you're doing it, but you're doing it. But like later you start to kind of think.
Hindsight.
Yeah, that's the wisdom part. So your first shift was foster care, you said.
Well, I would say the first one was at 15 years old. So I was in foster care at 3. I bounced around from house to house. I was putting shopping carts and push down hills. I was putting chicken coops and forced to chase chickens to earn meals. And
hold up, go slow with that shit. That's crazy. Wait,
you
were put in chicken coops?
Well, so at the time in 1986, I'm what's considered a paycheck, which means I'm a foster kid. As long as I don't die in the house, I get a paycheck. So Really heinous people were part of the system. I was like, at one point I was forced to lick the bottom of people's shoes till my tongue bled, like really heinous stuff.
Wait, Anthony, I don't believe you. I believe you, but I don't believe you. What are you saying right now? This is real?
Yeah. People suck, man. I was pushed out of a car one time at an intersection by one of my foster dads because I was late to kindergarten to the bus. Yeah, people do some weird stuff, man. It took a lot of years to navigate that kind of trauma and disdain and anger for humanity. But yeah, and the thing is, when you're in foster care, you tell people these things when you're a kid. And most of the kids in foster care, there's an assumption that if I'm bad enough, they'll send me back to my house. So we're trying to find ways to make stories up. Well, the reality was, like, I didn't make stories up. This was really going on. But when you hear that, you're like, no way. This kid wants to go home. But no, I definitively remember all of it like crystal clear. So it was, so the first part of my shift was I went into like 6 years old. This is all before 6, but I went into these moments and I pretty much like felt like it was normalcy for this to happen. So that's the first part. And I carried that because we carry these things. And when you've been hurt, you want to hurt. So I was just the angry, bottled up, emotional kid. But at 6 years old, I got put into my home, which is my current home. The difference and unique part is I was the only Black person in an all white, really poor family. So the first shift took place when I got adopted at 14 and tried to play football for the first time, realized I sucked, gave up because I'm like, it's too hard. Because we try things, we're not good at them. We're like, I'm going to try something else. And at one point, a moment kind of woke me up and I was like, no, I want to find a way to be great. And I tried to be great at football. And I went through a really interesting kind of growth period and then came out on the back end, a whole different person and a different player.
I love the shift of, yeah, I thought I sucked, but I want to actually get great at this. Did you look at that as your kind of way out of all of this, maybe?
Well, not back then. I think the thing was there was this desire internally to stop feeling the feels of I suck.
Yeah.
Or being at the beck and call, like a leaf in the wind of the world. And so my mom had been diagnosed, my adoptive mom had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I'm one of 6 in a family. My older brother is my rocks. He's off in the military and I'm floating. And there was this girl in a class, Mr. Howell's English class. We're in a back corner and like, she doesn't know I'm listening. I'm like halfway passed out and she's talking to somebody else. And she says, well, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care, to that girl. And at face value, it's like, oh, okay, it's no big deal. But to me, it was a gift because she was able to say out loud the excuse that I had accepted as to why I wasn't going to be great.
Yeah.
And it sounded bad. And it was really like I don't want to feel like that or say that. And I went home and a little 15-year-old kid looked himself in the eyes, pupils, like dead serious. I remember all parts of this moment. I'm like, you're going to be great. Like if you'd been watching it, been like, what's this little kid doing? Like, hey, you're going to be great. Like weird to probably watch. But that was it. And it was this anchoring of like, all right, I'm going to try something because I would realize this. If I do something, if I give effort, there's no guarantee I have success. However, if I do nothing, I guarantee I don't. So why not try? And that was the catalyst at the beginning of it all.
Wow. Wait, so your first foster family was at 6 and
3.
then that didn't work out or you?
Well, I was in 6 families. My 6th house is my family now. So between 3 years, 5 houses. And then that's the 3rd year, end of it, landed in this current family, which it's weird to say that because it's my family, but it's like when you go to that moment. But yeah, it was at 6 years old, I entered this family.
So at 6 years old, you entered your true family, like
Forever
the one
family.
that you consider your real family.
Yes.
And so you're telling me that there was a family that made you lick the bottom of shoes before the age of 6?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, never acceptable, obviously. I'm not trying to say that after 6 it was acceptable. A little baby, like a little pure, beautiful baby.
Yeah. Put me in carts. I mean, like they used to put me in a cart and push me down the hill. It was the same family. The cart and the shoe thing was same family. Doris's family back in Bay Point, California. And yeah, they pushed me down. Like there's a cart that would go into traffic. Like there was a street with cars going by. They'd let it loose. And like when you hit the curb, thankfully I didn't get hit by a car. You go flying out and it hurt. And they grab you and force you back in. Very torturous. I used to get beat in that family if I wet the bed. And I would wet the bed because I was deathly afraid of them and in the middle of the night. And so like anytime I peed the bed, it was bad. So I just had a lot of, here's the thing though. It was so normal to me. It didn't feel abnormal. You know, like I think you when that's your developmental years, that's all you can know. Like you're like, oh, this must be how life is. And so it wasn't until after kind of recollection, those moments, I'm like, damn, these people really were heinous people.
How did you get past that? Did you do like trauma work?
I didn't think I did for a lot of years. I thought it was no big deal. But then I looked back and when my mom like brought some things up, I remember I used to go when I was in my current family. I used to go to this place and sit and play with toys and talk to a lady. Now, I don't remember what we talked about. I do remember the place. I found out later that was like the therapy I'd go to. But I was like a bad, act out, emotionally distraught little kid. And like those were the times where I definitely went and talked to people, but probably not past elementary school, if anything. But I'm sure that moment in time helped kind of stabilize me a little bit and not totally go crazy off the rails. Because I didn't know till later, like in my 30s, that if you go to any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids.
What?
Yeah. Three-fourths. Yeah, it's nuts. That's dead serious. I'm not even joking with that. Half are homeless population because kids age out of the system and the families leave them. My younger brother, when he turned 18, the family just left him and they went to New Mexico, left him high and dry because they weren't getting a paycheck anymore. I think less than 1% of us graduate from college because we're just not set up to get these helps or whatever it is. So it's a really interesting situation. The foster care world needs a lot of help.
Yeah, clearly. Wow. Do you know, is Doris still around?
I don't know.
You've never looked for her?
It's funny. I never looked for her specifically, but I did at one point, probably 3 years ago, go driving around the neighborhood. Really weird feeling because I knew where it was at. I could tell you this day where the address and everything at. I remember the church I used to go sit at for the bus stop. But no, I never did. And the thing was, I didn't go looking until after I had like healed the wound of it all, which was probably like my early 30s. So I was like, I feel like I can go there and not like cry.
Anthony, where did you say this is in California?
Yeah, the San Francisco Bay Area.
Great,
I was born
that's
in
not too far from me. Can we take a ride there someday? I'd love to meet Doris.
Yeah, I would too. Huh? I don't think she's there anymore. I know the house and everything.
Oh, we got to find her. I'm not going to do anything bad, but I will just a nice conversation. I'd love to get to know what could possibly be in that head. I mean, we know that hurt people. So obviously she's got something in her past that would, there's stuff that's totally wrong in there. Yeah. But this is not going to be okay for me for a long time. Like that's so upsetting.
Yeah, it sucks. And it's funny, over the years, we all have moments in time where I think you just find out they're horrible people. And one of the things that's given me some kind of like reprieve from the desire to like have retribution is the aspect of sometimes people like that, the best that you can do for revenge, we'll call it, is let them continue to live their life. Because their life, everybody's life's a mirror to how they give things out. And so I'm like, man, if I couldn't dish out the kind of punishment the world can, if you continue to operate like that. So I live in a space of peace, knowing that I probably will never see what took place. But if you keep operating like she did back then, like there's no way you get through life unscathed.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. 100%. They get that plus. plus.
I live motion of it.
Well, and so you obviously are luckily not one of those unfortunate like statistics that you were mentioning before. You know, you went on to play in the NFL. You went on to become an American Ninja Warrior. You've done some really cool stuff in your life. So, I mean, obviously, I think we always have an easier time learning from someone who has gone through it and come out the other side. So let's talk about kind of, what got you to the place where you knew this was your work?
Accident, right? What do they say? The world provides a plan, and sometimes we mess it up. I think there was this like random statement I came up with a couple of days ago, and I said, I don't want to mess up the plan for my plan.
I don't want to mess up the plan for my plan?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, I'm a big believer that life has a really cool thing set out for all of us, and we mess it up. Yeah. Whether it's fear or, maybe reluctance to try something or apprehension, whatever it is, I feel like we just kind of step in and we let things pass us by. So I always had this thought of like my life post, getting adopted, I get to play in the bonus rounds. Like you ever play video games and you beat the round and like there's bonus, get all the ducks you want, or get the rings from Sonic the Hedgehog. I was like, well, life kind of like is that when a lot of us get past a certain headache point. So I'm like, well, everything from here on is all bonus. I've passed the level I'm not supposed to be. So I'm in a bonus round. So I've been doing that since I was 15, I think. Like when I got adopted, played football and started moving forward. So I think the progression of me in my life moving forward has just been a matter of trying things out and figuring them all out and having fun, seeing what life is past what I think it is. And so there's this kind of thought where I'm like, man, at the end of the day, I want to mess up the plan. So I got to this work by going, okay, let me live life. And I just, life wasn't crazy even past that. I got to college, had a kid at 20 years old, met my real dad in college, my very first collegiate start, national television. I got this game ball. You can kind of see on the day I met my real dad. Progressed a couple of years, got a chance to play in the NFL. Third year got hurt because NFL stands for not for long. It's like you get in, you get hurt,
Oh my
you get out.
God.
Yeah, that's weird. And I have a lot of random cool stories. We don't have enough time to go over them all. But then I get home post the game and I had a massive crisis, an identity crisis. And a lot of us, like, we don't know we're going through it, but we are. And while football and, in the military are very clear cut aspects of when you have a big crisis of who you are, it happens if I leave a job, start a business, leave a relationship, the dog passes away, whatever. When something is normal to me and I wake up one day, it's no longer part of my life, I feel a hole. And so for me, I came home from football. I had this kid, my high school sweetheart. We had 2 more kids and I lost my sense of self. And so I started neglecting them. And I had a business I was building, wasn't doing great. And so next thing I know, I'm divorced. My kids have no present father because I'm out trying to build this business. The business is all of it, everything tumbling down. I'm out of shape and I got suicidal. Like I was like, I don't want to live here. Like if this is life after the game, I'm cool. And I went into a long fog for a few years, just ups and downs and trying to honestly surviving, we'll call it. And then got to a point where it was April 14th, 2015. And my mom passed away from MS. She had been diagnosed 17 years prior. And it was that moment where I was realizing, like, I'm living in a 500 square foot studio apartment with my kids on an air mattress next to my bed after the NFL. Like, this is not a good world, a good life. And so I made really 2 distinct promises to mom. First promise was I'm going to fix my life. Because this isn't what she didn't do. All she did to love me past that crazy, because she's humongously the reason as to why I wasn't a statistic. She loved me past the walls, the emotion, not letting people in. So I'm like, man, I'm going to do right by, I'm going to fix my life. And when I do, I literally told her, like, I'm going to do for the world what you did to me. I'm going to unconditionally love in some way. At this time, I knew the gym business. That's what I was running. So I got my life back in order and started figuring things out. In fact, I divorced my wife. 3 years later, we got remarried, have an amazing marriage now. We're 5 years deep in a remarriage. And then from there, I was like, cool, I got that dialed. My kids are a present father. So like, now it's time to serve the world. But all I knew was the gym, my little tucked away town. And I happened across an event called Experts Academy by our friend Brendan Burchard. And I came and just sat in a seat as a random human. I had no idea the world existed of sharing your message and like writing books and speaking. And here's this guy jumping around on stage, like, you could do this. I'm like, really? So I started sharing the story, which was really hard at first, because typically a 6'2", 230-pound Black man played linebacker in the NFL. We don't share our feelings. That's not what I'm taught to do. But the more I did it, the more I realized that the rest of the world needed it. And so I could finally actually make good on promise number 2. And so I've been doing that since about 2014 now, of trying to find a way to actually get the message out. Because my mom passed away April 15th, 2014. Like in that same year, I think April and then June is when I happened across his work. All of a sudden it opened up a whole door and I walked through it.
Wow. So you're sharing your message and helping people with your story. Do you feel like we were talking about this earlier with Kelsey, like, you know, and you just said kind of like something about the plan, but like you think you have a plan and then God shows you the real plan.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Do you look back now at your time in the NFL, which by the way, God bless you. You were like, I suck at this, but I'm going to get great at this. And then you make it to the biggest of bigs. You get to the big leagues. Do you look back now and say, oh, yes, it was painful, but it led me to my purpose?
Oh, very much so. It's funny is when you go through the middle of like craziness, you're just trying to focus on craziness. How do I navigate this crazy? It's like walking around with your head down all day long. And we just like, why do I keep bumping into this craziness? And then later on at some point, it makes itself clear of like, why? Because I believe there's an uncanny aspect to my humanity. And I spend time and thought to figure out like, how am I how I am? Because in my family, my adoptive family, I'm one of 6, only one to graduate with a bachelor, not bachelor's, but a diploma, not do continuation or GED. Only one of my immediate family, even my cousins, my aunts, to actually go to college. I beat the odds of the stakes of foster care. I beat the odds of the NFL and sports. I sold my first business after 10 years. Like, I've beaten a lot of odds. And for me, I look at it and go, there's no way it's an accident. There are many times that God showed up in my life and I couldn't even explain how. Like 6 different times in my gym business over 7 years, I needed to make like $2,000 on a specific day or I can't pay payroll. And every single time someone came in and paid in full. No idea. Every time I was like, there's no way it's an accident. I say all that to say that I look back on it and go, the only reason that this human exists is because God put me through stuff that forced me to have to figure it out and positions that give me some kind of a pedestal to be able to share it. And then he gave me the heart, the compassion, the ability to communicate in a way to put it out into the world. So I walk in this really weird bubble of I'm a black guy who grew up in a white family who played sports, but isn't just an athlete, who doesn't mind sharing it all and experiences more than he probably should because life is crazy. So I'm like, there's no way that concoction was accidental. So I look at all that. I have no idea what else in the world I am better suited to do than this, because not only am I set up to do it, I do it well. I absolutely get filled up by pouring out. Like, I love this. I love sharing, talking, teaching, because I get these cool messages. I'm like, holy crap, I can't think of anything better. Like, football pales in comparison to the joy I get from what I get to do now.
Yeah, for sure. I had to figure out at some point that the things that have gone on in my life have gone on for a reason so that I could figure them out and then help other people figure it out. And that every time I was in like a dark place, I would be like, all right, Marie, you got to figure this shit out. And my motivation was more for everybody else than even myself sometimes, because I started to see the pattern and I was like, okay, it would be the way that I would motivate myself to kind of get through. Like, you're going to be able to help other people through this. Just figure it out. Just hang in. Yeah. And so,
totally get it. The funny thing is, I never had that mentality until like probably 2014. I was like, I'm gonna get my stuff done, get my stuff right. And then it was actually a buddy of mine, Richie Beltram, who, like, after one night where I was like, I drove off and I sent a text to my friends and family and said, please tell my kids who their father was. Like, I was done. And thankfully the time of the night when it was going on, there was nothing open, so I could find any like rat poison I was looking for, and I parked my car, and just the feeling subsided, I'll say. The next day, Richie comes in and he goes, first off, never do that again. Like, I'll knock you out. Second, he goes, I feel like I threw up. He says, I feel like I lost a hero. I was like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, I played high school football with this guy. I'm like, you lost a hero. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, at the end of the day, people in this community, we know what you've endured and what you've gone through, and we saw where you've come to. You inspire a lot of people without even realizing it. And it was interesting because it was the first time that someone had planted a seed of like, maybe there's something in this. And that's the moment in time when I started thinking, like, maybe there's something I could do to give back to the world through this.
Yeah, and a lot of worth too he threw at you real fast.
Oh, more than I knew. Yeah, I needed that. I definitely needed that a different way. But he's like alpha. He's like a police officer, alpha dude. Like, hey, bro, that's kind of.
Yeah.
But the way it came, like, it needed to land the way it did.
Yeah, for sure. So you wrote this book, The Identity Shift: Upgrade How You Operate to Elevate Your Life. So what are the steps that people can take to make shift happen in their life?
Make shift happen. I love that. Such a good saying, isn't it? Oh, It's so cool. Because at the end of the day, everybody has their own thing they want to create, and you don't have that feeling of like, I made that happen when, like, you make a sandwich. It needs to be something that's like huge and expressive, that you pinch yourself and go, is it real? And I realized that doesn't happen unless you're choosing to become the person who experiences that. Right there are these things we want, and I realized that I've never seen someone have something that they didn't, I guess, deserve to have. Right? You don't have the marriage unless you become the person of being that great marriage. You don't have the business unless you've done the things to become the person that can build a great business. Like, these things don't get thrown at your doorstep accidentally. So in that realization, it's like, all right, well, how do I become that person? That's what I did. When I was in that funky place, I became the guy who could be better in a marriage. So my marriage got back together. Be a better dad. So I have kids that have a dad. Run a better business. All these things. Get in better shape. And so the process I looked at was like, I want to go back through my life and see, where does this congruency happen? Was there a golden thread through things I did for football and college and NFL and sports, Ninja Warrior, right? And I found that there's like these 3 simple steps. If you follow these 3 steps and you apply them, there's a lot of depth to them, but at 50,000 feet looking down, you can really get it. Step 1 is see. Most of us do not see ourselves properly. There's this statement I love, and it says, it's hard to see the label when you are inside of the jar.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just kind of walk around and so we're doing our thing in life and we're not realizing where we are hindering things. It's like we're walking around with blinders on, kicking things over. And it's like, you just don't see who you are. So the first part is really deep self-awareness that sometimes takes outside people to give you insight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first part. But once I see that, I go, okay, cool. And here's the cool thing. If I've seen this, I can kind of like unhitch the trailer and I can go faster. So then you get to see a different, more hopeful, desirable future. Because if this is removed, maybe I could do that, build that, create that, be with that person, right? So it opens up that. But then we go, okay, great, sounds good, but that's not who I am. I'm not that person, right? It seems out of character. And the funny thing is, we deem out of character to be this bad thing. Oh, don't act out of character. What are you doing? But if Bob, the neighbor, is mean and one day goes, hey, kids, how you doing? Like, come play on the yard. I don't mind. Like, he's nice. That's super out of character of Bob, but it's in a good direction. So why is out of character always bad? So I realized we're trying to do and have more. We're trying to be out of character, but when met with the moment, we go, I don't want to do that. So the shift is the second part, see and then shift. Shift is twofold. One is, who am I going to shift into? Nobody thinks about the things I do. I'm going to become somebody. They hear that, but they don't think about who they're going to become. They just do things. And they're like, oh, I guess who I am years later. And it's like, I don't like me. So midlife crisis takes place, or I realize like, I got this job, but I hate this life. No one thinks about it. So it's like, okay, who do you want to become that has what you want to have? Lay that out there. Then what you do is go back and go, okay, great. What are the actions that if I took them consistently, I could internally identify with that person? Simple example would be, I want to be a mom someday. Great. Well, you kind of have to do things to become a mom, right? So it builds up. Part of it's having a kid. The second part is like, I got to change diapers and I got to love on the kid and, clean their boo-boos up and take them to school. Like, there's actions you do. And at some point you start saying like, no, I'm a mom. Before those moments, the actions, you don't feel that way. You want to do that. So the same thing applies to anything. You want to start a podcast, do a show. I'm sure when you first started, you're like, I don't know, but I'm gonna try, right? But you build in, and all of a sudden you're incredible like you are at what you do. And that's the progression of where if somebody says, oh, you don't know anything about a TV show, let's hold on a second. Like, you know what I'm saying? It would step up different, and it's because of what you did. And now a lot of us, we do end up being at a certain place, but most of us, it takes longer and farther because we don't think about before we're going to become. So those two for shift. The last part, the part that people miss, because we're good at planning and vision boards and dreaming, but here's the kicker, what changed. It's the sustain phase. It's, can you create a disciplined system to stay in that groove towards that identity without having it all run on emotion? Because if I stay in an emotional state and it's only driven off emotion, one day I won't feel like doing that thing. So the thing doesn't get done. I tuck away. And not only that, the reverse, because I didn't do it, I get an opposite emotion of, you suck. You can't even complete this. It's self-deprecating. It sucks. So the idea is, how can I create a system in my life to where I'm not based off how I feel? I have certain things to do. And then what I do is, if I have those things, I may not like them, but find ways to enjoy them.
Ooh.
Then I fall. No worries.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. I'll fall in love with the day and not just the destination. And if I can get you to fall in love with the day from the actions that you are supposed to do to go to the identity you want to, because you've seen the work, somehow all of a sudden, it's kind of like being at a coffee shop. Let's say, coffee shop. I got a phone. I'm at the coffee shop. I know I got to do work right now. But what I do is I'm on the phone. I'm scrolling. I go, no, I got to work. I put the phone down. And I sit there for a moment. I go, let me focus on work. The first 5 minutes are like kind of like painful. I'm trying to like focus, but I want to do something else. But after a while, drowns out. And I pop up like 2 hours later and everything's done. Emails are written, the thing's done. Like, oh my gosh, it's all good. You kind of float into that space. The same thing happens when you sustain over time towards a new identity. You'll start working towards something. All of a sudden, the show's done. The body's in better shape. The relationship's fixed. Like, holy crap, it's done. And I look back and go, man, I feel like a whole different person. Like, I'll literally tell people, they go, well, how do you know you made a shift, Ant? I go, do me a favor. Try to get back into the headspace of who you were when you were unsuccessful. If you can't, you made a shift. If you like, I don't know, I used to think different. I used to do different things. What was wrong with me back there? Like that conversation, that's when you know, like, I've done it. And that takes a seeing, a shifting, and a sustaining.
Kelsey, there was something you mentioned to me that I can't remember right now about using your friends.
Oh, I remember.
Tell us, because I want him to explain it.
When Anthony and I were chatting, I was asking him how we discover our superpowers because he talks a lot about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? How do we do that? So then, Anthony, you told me the coolest thing about asking our friends. I'll let you elaborate, but I loved it.
Yeah. So I did Ninja Warrior. And I found out that I want to train a ninja warrior because I'm really big compared to these guys. They're like, 5'8", they're like 160 pounds. I'm like 6'2", 230. I'm like, I'm not supposed to hang on this stuff. So I asked the guys, how do I get prepared and do better? They said, well, train your grip. I said, well, how? They said, well, train a finger. So which one? They go, guess. I said, index, thumb. No, your pinky finger.
Because it's the weakest.
No, here's the thing. I found out you can look it up. If you cut off your pinky finger, you lose 50+% of your grip strength. Wow. Amazing. Look, I'm dead serious. Google this if you want to. Seriously.
No wonder I have no grip strength. My pinkies are so little.
You need to work on your pinky strength.
I feel like my pinkies are so little and they're so lame.
Well, that's the thing, though.
That's crazy.
So the thing is, essentially, the most insignificant part of your hand is actually the strongest. Wow. So us as humans, I find the most insignificant thing to us is typically our strongest. Problem is we don't focus on it. We don't pay attention. So she asked, well, how do you figure it out? I said, well, send your friends and whoever you want, your family, say, hey, if you could extract one thing from me that you could plug into your life to improve your life, what would it be?
Yeah. I had that moment when she first told me. I was like, I love that. I'm going to do that because I think, we are all kind of conditioned to not value ourselves, not think much of ourselves. So we're not conceited. So then all of a sudden, now anything you are is a blur because God forbid I embrace it. God forbid I own that I'm really good at something. And so I think that's like a big thing we all kind of struggle with. So to have that question answered, man, I think is so huge in kind of finding your way and also being able to embrace something like that. Such a great tool, I think.
Yeah. It's weird, uncomfortable in a good way though. Because people first off, people go like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? They'll ask that. Why are you asking me this? And secondly, you'll get answers that throw you in a good way though. Like you'll be like, I never thought about that. Because typically you're not paying attention to it. It's just what you do and it's normalcy.
So when you asked your friends, what did they say about you?
A lot of my friends said that I would love to take out your ability to lean into risk with joy.
Ooh.
Because I'll do things that scare most people with a smile on my face. Like, how could you be smiling? I'm like, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to die. I've had it way worse. And two, I'm going to learn something I don't even know I'm going to learn. That whole, you don't know what you don't know. Every time I've done something, I try to, but also people think I'm going in empty and blind. No, you have a whole life filled with tools and skill sets, just haven't chosen to wield. So that's one of the things. The other thing is I have a ability to forgive deeply. And most people are like, I wish I could forgive the way you forgive and move on. Like, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I don't know how to do it either. There's a logic way of how I think through forgiveness. It actually gives my brain a little bit of pause and ease. But yeah, the forgiveness is one part of it too.
How do you forgive? How do you forgive Doris? Did you forgive Doris? Because I haven't forgiven her yet.
Yeah, Doris, all the other people, my mom, my dad, who, was like, I didn't know who you were, didn't know you existed, and apologized when I first met him. And then 9 years later, before he passed, I was like, I knew about you the whole time. People have stolen from me. I've had friends try to ruin my marriage, like a lot of stuff. Here's what I've come to find. The majority of everybody that I look deeply at, there's two things. One, they're never typically trying to maliciously hurt me. In some way, they're trying to elevate themselves and or simply serve themselves, and the byproduct was my pain. So I'm like, man, these people, it's weird when you think about it, because my mom didn't give me away and say, hey, I'm going to put you out here so you can get beat up by these people and tortured. Like, that wasn't her thing. In her head, she's like, I can't take care of these kids. She thought she's probably doing something good for us, put them in a different home, but there was the byproduct of that. So I was like, well, first off, if that's the thing, it's hard to be mad at a person who didn't intend for your pain to take place. Secondly, I go, at the end of the day, these people weren't given tools to be better. They didn't have the skill sets. They didn't have the nothing, right? They didn't have what they were supposed to have had in my head. So that's another part they were lacking. The third part of it made me go, well, man, if I didn't know them and I knew they needed help and they were doing things to kind of tear up the life around them, wouldn't there be some sort of compassion? It's almost like a compassion to where I wish that you didn't have to experience that, because, well, now my dad missed out on an amazing man all his life. My mom has missed out on an amazing son, right? These guys that have done me wrong, they've missed out on a great friend. Like there's the person I've become to where I'm like, I don't have anger. I have a pity and a compassion for you. And so that's allowed me to step into life without the anger, without that pain, and show up differently. Because I find the world is a definitive mirror to you. What you give out reflects back. If I go out and I'm yelling at people, I'm going to get yelled at, right? So I got to give out good stuff. And I find you can only give what you have inside. So if I choose to find a way to give myself more peace and find more compassion and passion, I give it out to the world, it reflects back. So my life is much better because my internals are much better.
Wow. Anthony, you've given us a lot in a very short time. Can we do this again?
Whatever you want, count me in.
Where are you?
San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, you are? Okay, cool. Yeah, we have to do this again. The book is called The Identity Shift Upgrade, How You Operate to Elevate Your Life. It is out now. We're going to link to it in the description. You can go to anthonytrucks.com for more, and his Instagram @AnthonyTrucks. All of this will be in the description of this episode, and we are going to have to do at least one more episode.
Gotcha.